So
Uh,
basically, what happened in December, which is by that time, I'm like, I don't know, 140, 150 days into this, everything's going really good. Everything's completely consistent, Um, I'm probably at about 85, 86 kilogram. We go to Dominican Republic for a family vacation about a week before Christmas. And just upon arriving back, returning, 1 or 2 days later, I'm in bed with this horrendous stomach or abdomen pain.
Mark, how did you find carnivore?
Yeah, so bit of a long story. I guess it goes back almost 15 years ago. Got to know the Atkins revolution or so, and end up me and a colleague at work. I guess we had both kind of put on a few pounds, and I guess I can't remember if I came across Atkins or if he did, but we were close colleagues and we shared it and we kind of both jumped in. So I read the book, and I was never a big vegetable guy. I always liked protein, and um, so yeah, so that was how I came across kind of low carb or keto or Atkins at that time. Carnivore, on the other hand, that was probably more like I guess 2 years ago, maybe even less than that, maybe 1 year ago. What happened was I had gotten on Atkins, I had gotten some success, and maybe I'll get into my story a little bit, but quite a bit of time went by between first getting on Atkins, being successful for about 6 months or so, and kind of always slipping into, I guess, the dirty keto type of thing, whether it's keto bars, whether it's adding a little bit of this. Of course, I drank alcohol at that time, sometimes a little bit more than I'm proud to admit. But what would happen is, I was never really obese, but I was never lean. I never really had a six pack. I played sports when I was young and whatnot, but then over time, with drinking beer, with a little bit of fast food, when not really taking care of myself, that's where the situation was, about 15 years ago, where I said, okay, Atkins, let's go. Um, and, that was with some level of success. And not too long after that, I got an opportunity, because this was in Canada. I'm working in manufacturing, automotive parts, things of that nature. And I have an opportunity to move to China. Had been married not too long, had an infant, I think 6 months old infant. And I had an opportunity to get, expatriated to China around 2004. So, relatively healthy, active, pretty energetic, very healthy, never diabetic, never real health issues, but always a few pounds, especially in the midsection. And, in China, things kind of went up and down, as far as weight was concerned. As far as health, lots of eating out, lots of not always healthy food, quite a bit of drinking sometimes on a social setting, and through, what's supposed to be a couple of years, it ended up being 10 years. It was a bit of a yo-yo during that time of, I'm losing, I'd kind of always kind of refer back to Atkins, which I had discovered, a few years before. And I would apply, to the best of my ability, some type of low carb situation. But again, always with alcohol, not to a completely crazy excessive amount, but, I would say more than moderate sometimes, And then it ended up that I would, kind of yo-yo about maybe 5 or 10 pounds. I would get to a level that I wasn't quite happy with. I tightened up the things, and um, and everything kind of went, status quo, and everything kind of went on and on and on. Finally, we came back to Canada around 2014, and that's where a little bit more social media access, a little bit more international kind of information and stuff like that. Kind of start getting into YouTube, start following some low carb channels along with some hobby stuff, and that's where step by step stuff starting to slip in, with the algorithms. It took a while because I wasn't really looking that much at the low carb stuff. I was subscribed to a couple of channels, but very, very occasionally I would listen to some of it. I always had that in the back of my mind that this is something that I could do, not as a crash, 6-12 months thing, but I'd like to be in a maintenance situation where I reached a certain point that I was satisfied with, and I would just keep that maintenance level. And but a lot of it was focused on the career because we had spent a long time in China, and I had to find my footing in Canada. By that time, my two teenage daughters were getting a bit older, and we kind of got fed up with some of the things in China. So we wanted to be more in the Western world, and we wanted to have a better environment for our family. So I'm the only breadwinner. So, I'm on a fairly high level in the automotive world, kind of like a plant manager level, director level. So, I had reached a fairly high level in China, and so I wanted to kind of maintain that level in Canada. But there was a bit of an adjustment, needed. And really what came to a head, was during the pandemic. That's when things kind of went off track a little bit for me with regards to, I was working in another province, so I wasn't eating, whole foods, made by my wife or anything like that. I was eating by myself. But when the big C happened, during the pandemic, then I defaulted a lot more to the fast foods, a lot more of the convenience. I really took even more of a liking to red wine. So almost on a daily basis, I was having, a few more than a few glasses. And by the time, I guess by the time January 2021 came, that's when I decided to give up the alcohol, kind of cold turkey. So that was, and it's only really around August of 2023 that the carnivore thing really, well, probably a few months before is when it started trickling in on the YouTube stuff. And then it was like, my God, is this even possible? I can not even eat vegetables and, get what I need. And this is a healthy thing. And this is, and I really, really fell into the rabbit hole when it came to, studying about carnivore, probably from end of the first quarter or whatever, spring 2023. And, kind of going back to, low carb. Yeah, it makes sense. Learning about all the seed oil stuff, learning about a lot of, not just net carbs, but total carbs, and just learning just a hell of a lot about it, really kind of digging into it. And I guess it just kind of overflowed to the point where I said, okay, I'm doing this. I guess, again, I'm kind of home on the weekends with the family, but in the week, I'm by myself and I'm working. So I kind of had to go all in, and I was going to do my shopping. I was going to get my own food. I was going to cook my own thing. So I had zero, people that were going to, provide for me or do for me. It was an opportunity to do everything by myself, and So I kind of dove in both feet in August. Um, at the moment, yeah, I guess we could talk in kilograms or pounds, but typically I'd be around in the 90 to 93 kilogram. And when I reached, 93 or especially 95, that's when I'd say, I got to put the brakes on. I got to get into low, I got to get back to, 88 or whatever, whatever that number was. And yeah, so let's say 93, that'd be like, yeah, but over 200 pounds, right? About 205 pounds. And I'm 5'11", and I'm not, huge. But, that was maybe 28% body fat, if based on what the scale was saying, that scale that's got the magnetic, whatever things. So might not be super, super accurate, but at least from a reference point of view, probably about 28, 30. So it didn't really look that obese, but on paper, I think it's equal to obese, with that kind of body fat. So jumped in both feet. I was at around 90 to 92 kilograms at the time. So it wasn't at my worst. I wasn't at my worst when I started, but I had fallen into eating a whole bunch of fruits. After I had quit drinking and beginning a whatever, last couple of years, I had I didn't really understand that, the fructose, the sugar. I just thought, yeah, fruits are healthy. I had some of the worst. I loved pineapple, the grapes, and I found myself, snacking a lot, and on a lot of yogurt, and not the Greek yogurt, but some of the other, the flavored yogurts. So that had been more my weakness rather than the sugar cakes and the donuts, and never a big sweet tooth, but the fruits and that kind of stuff. And I found I had a bunch of inflammation. Like I had sore lower backs, and I had this kind of issue, more and more. And I thought, well, I'm 56 years old, I'm got to be normal. Then, everybody's got sore back pain, and I got a few injuries from sports or from before, broken fingers and broken this and that. So, I mean, it's got to be normal that people feel that stuff. But, so, and plus a little bit of weight. I wanted, I kind of still had that thing in the back of my head. Why not? Why can't I have a six pack? Why can't I be a little bit more fit and lean, And so let's get on the carnivore wagon, and I got into, the Sean Bakers and the Dr. Berries and, Chafees and, all of it pretty deep, and, still in your channel, and still, keeps me really, really motivated and a few other channels. So I got into the carnivore and lo and behold, bloody hell, all the pain kind of went away. Like whenever I'd sleep on my side, I would need 3 or 4 days to kind of recover because of my back. It would twist the bloody hell out of me. And here I am all of a sudden, a week in or whatever. And, I kind of noticed a week or two later, I've got no pain. I've got no pain. And it wasn't like probably a big culture shock for me because I wasn't even eating that much processed foods. I wasn't taking in too much sugar. Like I cut back on the fruits, and that was maybe a little bit of something I missed, but my system didn't need too much of an adjustment, period. And like I said, I always enjoyed meat, and so I guess I had a little bit of a keto flu, but not even barely, barely, no constipation issues. I kind of felt weird that I didn't have to go for a long time, but learning and reading and listening, I discovered, okay, this is normal. And I did take some electrolytes, even though I don't really know that I would have needed it, because I do salt my food to taste. And I don't have a huge appetite. It's not like I eat multiple pounds or 3 pounds of meat, per day. But I kind of settled on 2 meals per day with probably a pound and a half or whatever. And, didn't really feel hungry. Of course, there was a sales guy every week that brings donuts and Timbits and everything else. So I had to avoid that. Um, I went on a couple of business trips internationally, which was probably about halfway through. So I had to be careful. But I was able to stay pretty much carnivore. So that worked out really good. Um, and I lose weight, but not in a tremendously fast way. Just basically steady Eddie, step by step. I do kind of had the habit of weighing myself every few days at the same time on an empty stomach because I did want to lose the weight, but I wasn't obsessed with it because I know I was going in the right direction. But I was losing a bit of weight. I was feeling, completely clear headed. What I think, I didn't really think I had any brain fog, but, I could notice at work, remembering things, just being sharp, just being energized, not having any lull in energy. Of course, the back pains and some of the other pains. So obviously, inflammation was a big thing, probably caused by a lot of the fruits that I was having, maybe the seed oils a little bit, and I went steady, and I kept kind of a diary or on my phone. Okay, from day 0 to 30, kind of what my weight was tracking every few days or a few times a week, how I was feeling, what was going on. And if I had an outside dinner with a customer or something, and I had been 99% carnivore, but whatever. So I just make a note of it. And, I went 0 30, 30 60, same trend, so almost the good feeling and the energy, that was almost immediate, couple of weeks, for the first 30 days for sure. And then the 60 to 90, the 90 to 120, and even beyond was, I thought, yeah, maybe, I think I added a couple of drops of iodine. I read that might be useful. I was taking vitamin C. I kind of had them around, and I don't know. I thought, why not? So I kind of taken a vitamin C, um, sometimes vitamin D in the night. That was the other thing. The sleeping. The sleeping was much higher quality sleep, just not even comparable. Sometimes not even the length, but just wake up, alert. Um, so of course I had zero alcohol even before I joined, carnivore. So that was really good. No juices, basically just drinking water, some kind of carbonated water sometimes, but always, Perrier, always, zero carb kind of stuff. And, mostly eating ground beef or a steak, not really a ribeye occasionally, something in between a chuck and a ribeye. So kind of a midway level steak. I did a lot in the air fryer, so that was really convenient. And I kind of nailed down how to do a medium rare steak, so on the weekends, I still do. I have, bacon and eggs, basically almost Saturday, Sunday. So I enjoy that, mid morning or whatever. And then I'll usually have typically one bigger meal during the early evening, and that'll be occasionally salmon, but sometimes beef, mostly beef. Whether it's ground beef, steak, sometimes chicken. But it's really primarily beef. And then during the week, I kind of skip breakfast, and I still have coffee. So that's something that I still have and seems to not do me any harm. And I'll have a little bit of dairy, like in my coffee. Butter, of course, I cook in butter, bacon and eggs and that kind of stuff. And a little bit of plain Greek yogurt, a little bit. recently with a little bit of blueberries, not daily, but I've started to kind of add that in. Um, so not the worst of fruits, but maybe kind of try to spice things up just a little bit. And so far, a few weeks of that, I haven't seen any ill effects, but I don't want to push it as well. I want to keep it kind of as a treat, a little bit. Um, but so I ended up, getting to about 86 or so kilograms. I guess about 120 days into it. So like I said, not a really fast, weight loss, but very consistent.
What happens on the weekends? So you're on your own during the week. What
Yeah.
happens on weekends as far as are you eating with the family at all or
Yeah. So what happens on the weekend? Like I work about a 4-hour commute from where my primary home is. So typically on the Friday afternoon, I hike it over to make it back to my home, to my family, by about, before dinner time or, late afternoonish. And my wife cooks, and my mother-in-law, she's 86 now, and she's Chinese, just like my wife. And, so my wife takes really a lot of care for my mother-in-law. So she cooks, and she cooks for, my one daughter, was she's still at home. My oldest daughter is in college, so she comes occasionally. And but she's not keen. She's not carnivore. My wife's not carnivore, and she's not even ketovore, or she's not really keto. The good news is I think she's heading more in that direction, and she's learning a lot more of it. So a lot of times she'll have things that doesn't quite fit what I want or what I need, and it's totally fine for me to do my own thing, to cook my own thing. And we still eat together, sometimes, but it's not a big regiment that we always eat together. We're always nearby anyway. Someone might be, in the kitchen, kind of like at a stool. I might be at the table, eating. And so it's a bit of a loose arrangement. In the past, it was, hey, we're gonna have a family lunch, we're gonna have a family dinner. But it's been almost 5 years that I've been working, this kind of distance away. And when I come on the weekend, yeah, occasionally we would eat together. But since I'm carnivore, it's a lot less, And my wife, she asks me, and sometimes we'll have something that we share, whether it's chicken wings, or sometimes we'll do salmon, so we'll eat that together. Or she'll prepare some other, fish in a different way. But I would say a good 80% of the time, I'll do my own thing, and I'll eat carnivore. And I'll eat a dinner, by myself on the Friday. Saturday, I'm by myself making breakfast. Sometimes I'll cook extras for my daughter, or the breakfast thing will be there. But yeah, my wife is still very Chinese in nature, and they do eat some vegetables, some of the good vegetables, like cabbage, and not really the worst ones. But they don't eat nearly enough meat or beef, that's for sure. And that's what I do. So, but it's really fine. The family dynamics is fine. So that's, Saturday, I'll usually have stuff in the freezer from before, like a pound of ground beef or a steak or something else, and so I'll have stuff that for me it's no problem to do, whether it's late afternoon, early evening. And the family's fine with it. In the beginning it was like, oh my god, well, don't you want these vegetables, or well, what about this? But now it's they're starting to get the thing. It's always been, I hadn't been for a medical for a couple of years, and I had agreed, a few months ago that I would get a medical done. I had done a blood test, about 2.5 years ago, and I still have the report, and I kind of put it in an Excel column so that I have a kind of like the before of what it was like a few years ago. And then in a few weeks, I'm going to have a blood test again. And I'm going to try to ask my doctor to add a lot of things to it. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. And if it isn't, I might go I think just like in the US, you are able to apply for those things online, and they'll send you to a lab. So I'll have some labs in 2 or 3 weeks or whenever, and that's when I hopefully can kind of put that in my wife's and my kids' face and say, look, I'm not missing any vitamins or nutrients. I haven't been eating vegetables, so please let me do my own thing. I'm not pushing on them, none of this on you guys. Well, not too much, a little bit. But, I'm trying to educate them, a little bit more. My wife's actually following Dr. Berg, which is not really the biggest, carnivore doctor, but he touches quite a bit on low carb, and he's got she's a little bit diabetic, so she's being careful, and she's a little bit anxious in nature, I guess. Maybe that's my fault, but I don't know. And so yeah, that's how the family dynamics are on the weekend. Then Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon, probably around mid-afternoon or evening, I hustle back to my week, situation. And that's probably going to be how things are for the next few years. I have a good gig. I'm 56, almost 57. I'm not really thinking exactly when would be the retirement. We have some rental properties, so we kind of have a nest egg of something that we've built, like a retirement thing. Whether I can retire when I'm 60 or a little bit afterwards, but I enjoy what I do. I'm pretty passionate about what I do, and so as long as that's not burning me out or dragging me down too much, that's pretty cool. So basically, what happened in December, which is by that time, I'm like, I don't know, 140, 150 days into this, everything's going really good. Everything's completely consistent, I'm probably at about 85, 86 kilogram. We go to Dominican Republic for a family vacation about a week before Christmas. And just upon arriving back, returning, 1 or 2 days later, I'm in bed with this horrendous stomach or abdomen pain. And that I don't think you know about, because that's why we delayed this meeting. I got into a situation where I had zero appetite. I was in bed with pain for a few days in a row. And, I was kind of, trying to hang in there. I felt bloated, didn't really feel good at all, couldn't put anything down. Then my fever spiked to almost 40, almost 40 degree, 40 or like 104 or something like that, or almost 105. And we said, all right, this is nuts. We got to go to emergency, because if you go to outpatients, they close at 6 o'clock, and you kind of end up wasting your time. So we went into the emergency, even though they don't treat you like an emergency, I guess, unless you were dying. It's really a long wait and whatever. But that evening, I think near midnight, finally got a CT scan and discovered that my appendix was in terrible, terrible shape, about to rupture almost, So they said, oh, you're not going anywhere. We got to have emergency surgery with you like as soon as possible. So the next morning I had an appendicitis, or they removed my appendix. So it didn't really rupture, before the surgery, but it kind of fell apart during the surgery. And they kind of kept me in the hospital for, I think, a day or two under observation, because it was not like such a clean situation in there. But that's where they put a scope in your belly button, and they have a couple of other things that they get in there. And I guess they didn't really get everything out, maybe the impurities or what was infected or whatever, but they still sent me home with antibiotics. That was, probably before the New Year's. And, again, I stay in bed for a few days. This is supposed to be something that every day you recover a little bit. And in a matter of days, you're up, you're eating a little bit, you really feel that you're getting better. I wasn't. So after about 3 more days, back to emergency I go, and back into the CT scan. Here I have like a 7 centimeter by 1 or 1.5 centimeter area, which is very, very severely infected. And again, you're not going anywhere. You're either we're not sure if it's gonna be surgery. Maybe we can avoid it. Maybe it'll just be antibiotics, intravenously. And, most likely we'll put a drain hose in your abdomen to suck out some of the bad impurities or whatever. So that all went on. And I stayed in the hospital until, let me think now, it would have been January 8th, late on that Monday was when I finally was sent home again, because I had 2 different type of antibiotics. I had, on IV, and they take a while to really work. And then even when it's improving, they want to keep you there a bit longer to make sure, this is not going to go sideways again. So that was a rough, 10 to 15 days. I say, I almost didn't eat anything. So it's almost like I was on a fast, I wasn't really hungry, but I was even having trouble getting liquids in. So the IV was very necessary. And then, things started to get a whole lot better, a whole lot faster. I had seen some significant improvements. I'm telling you, the hospital food, I'm sure it's in a lot of fairly developed countries, So I get for breakfast, cereal, and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Sadly, in the developed countries, the food tends to be very developed.
Yeah, developed in ways we don't like that much. Developed and highly processed. Yeah. So, it didn't take me long to tell my wife, bring me boiled eggs, boil me some eggs and put them in a bag and bring them to me. And then, I started eating that, and I did, have a few tastes of yogurts, and I was having coffees, but then, like I said, okay, I need more eggs. I bring me a couple of pieces of pepperoni, and I started, so I was doing pretty good, avoiding all that stuff. But I mean, I needed food, I needed, so I wasn't overly, I was getting sandwiches, and I was asking for extras. So I was getting roast beef sandwiches, eating the roast beef, barely touching the bread. So they didn't ask, and they didn't even notice, I don't think. But so I'm still kind of pretty determined, to be a carnivore. Even back then, I did a bunch of research. Is like, could this have anything to do with me being carnivore? I mean, I haven't found an inch of an inch of an inch, of any kind of information where whatever I ate or how I ate could have caused this appendicitis. I think it's just pure chance, bad chance. So then, of course, my wife is a bit concerned, and she's always thinking, well, it could be because what you eat, how you eat. And I'm pretty, adamant that it isn't, because I'm stubborn, but I've done my research as well, and I continue to do my research, and I don't want to ask the doctors plain and straight, because they're gonna give me some stupid remark anyway. So I'm kind of being smart about that. They never asked anyway. They never asked what kind of thing I'm eating, so I don't tell them. And so then, I immediately get back home, and I thought, for a little bit, I thought, you know what? It might be tricky. It might be tricky to get back on the carnivore wagon, and it might be tricky to kind of get right back into it. Maybe my system is not adjusted anymore. Maybe, but, lo and behold, pretty seamless drop back into the machine, the carnivore machine. And in the beginning, kind of trying to stick with some easily digestible stuff. But then I'm thinking, what's more digestible than, highly, nutritious, meat, where you almost have nothing left after you digest it, so it's not going to be hard to digest, so I kind of went. Then I read later on that you should go really, really easy for maybe like 4 weeks afterwards, but I kind of didn't. And then, I didn't eat like a whole lot, but I ate, good food. And then, I kind of really felt really, really good. And last week, I think I was in work, for the first week. And so that but then I stepped on the scale. Holy smokes. Bloody hell, what happened there, I have a scale at my primary home, and I have a scale, where I work, in my home where I work, and they're about half a kilogram off. One seems to be the calibrated or whatever. The one that's where I work, I'm always like maybe like a half a kilogram less than the one. So I kind of use it as a reference, and I usually don't even weigh myself on the weekend because now I'm set in my ways and whatever. But when I got home, I weighed myself, and my last memory was, I think I was at 86 or something like that. And I'm like 79 point something. It's like, whoa, Jesus, that's,
That's a heavy appendix.
That was a big mama. He had a big family along with him, So I was like, bloody hell, it's like I was on a fast for like 10 or 15 days, but that's a lot. So then I start looking at, of course, I think I lost significant amount of weight, but I'm looking at myself thinking, what about my arms? What about my chest? Do I look, like I lost like a lot? And I don't look like I lost like a lot of muscle. But then when I put a pair of pants on, it's like, holy God, I'm swimming in those things, because I had a lot of weight in my midsection and kind of in my upper thighs, kind of in my butt, it kind of didn't really look that bad, but there was a fair amount of fat there, and that whole thing just burnt right off. And to this day, I'm still, even I dropped a couple of kilograms since those 2 weeks, even trying to eat a lot, not bad foods, but, making sure I eat well and making sure that, hey, I don't want to lose muscle here. So I need to make sure I got adequate protein. I was working out a little bit, before this all happened. So I have a little bit of a home gym set up where I work. And of course, with the extra energy, I started not working out like hard, but I started working out, a little bit. And the intention is to work out even more and maybe, build a little bit more definition and a little bit of muscle mass. So yeah, like I said, I was, 79 or whatever, and now I'm like 77, which is about 160 pounds, which is really, I haven't been at this weight, man, I think for decades, to be honest with you. And I feel really good, like I said, now I have about 21% body fat, according to my scale. So I'm back on 100% carnivore. I'm not able to really put a lot of strain or weight on my abdomen because it's only been like maybe 3 weeks of healing, and I got to go another maybe 2-3 weeks to make sure I don't get a like a hernia or some kind of thing like that. But I mean, I feel really, really good.
There could be people watching this video now
Yeah,
that are kind of they're thinking seriously about trying out carnivore, but they've
yeah,
tried every other diet out there, and they haven't had
yeah,
success, and they're trying to deal with pain or excess weight or both, and
yeah,
they're thinking about carnivore, but they're not quite there.
yeah,
One thing I'm interested to know from you is when you started and you'd be traveling, or you go out on the like you'd have a business meeting over
yeah,
dinner or something like that. How did you handle the cravings? How did you
yeah.
avoid the bad foods?
Well, yeah, I would, you know, I guess I've been already, in a situation where I don't order alcohol, right? So that's been maybe kind of a precursor or a little bit of a warm up session towards the other part, right? I would get the occasional, alcohol free beer, like, but that's not that great tasting. There's some that are not bad, but that was before I went carnivore, because there's a few carbs in that stuff too. If they could make a really good, really, really low carb, zero alcohol beer, that might be something I'd have once in a while. So that would come up a little bit once in a while. And it's look, hey, yeah, I'm not drinking. Hey, I always say, it's not that I'm not gonna drink for the rest of my life, but I've been not drinking for a good spell. You guys fill your boots. I'll have a water with a piece of lemon in it or whatever. So, I always, I think you gotta have a confidence. You gotta have a certain confidence in you and a belief. And whatever comes at you, if you're standing up on your own 2 feet, and if you're pretty confident, I find most people pretty reasonable. So when I go to dinner, sometimes there's a bunch of appetizers. If it's a group setting and we're going to share appetizers, I'll be completely honest with you. I probably never touch them. There's a very, very occasionally an appetizer which will be, carnivore. Like maybe sometimes there's a few wings or there's a few pieces of meat, but it's not that common. And then usually, we kind of get to order our own main course. Usually, occasionally it's a different situation, but and I'll look for, sometimes, lamb or a steak. Um, and, I don't know. I think one time in an Italian restaurant, I think I had like maybe a little bit off track with like a veal parmesan or something like that, where it's like maybe it's a little bit breaded, or you don't know if they use seed oil or whatever, but because I'm not in sales and it's not like a multiple times per week issue, it's more once every few months, I'll go as close as I can to carnivore, and I won't eat my vegetables, I won't eat potatoes, and somebody will be across, and they're like a complete vegetarian. So there's a guy that works for me. He's a vegetarian, and there's another guy, actually the owner of our company. He's completely vegetarian, and but there's people in the crowd, that like meat as well. So it hasn't really come up that much, and we don't do a lot of socializing, with friends or families or like that much as well. But what I would say is, don't push it on people. You can say that, hey, you're doing this for a short period of time, whether it's 30 days or whatever. It maybe is because of inflammation or something else. Everybody kind of relates with inflammation, right? So you could say, look, I'm eating in this way as a trial for 30 days. Don't think I'm weird. Hey, you do what you do, I do what I do. and I feel better already, so it seems to be working for me. Don't really push it, but be confident. Be confident and say, look, hey, you do you, and me do, I'll do me. Uh, but again, I think you have to have a certain, you can't be half pregnant, right? Like they say. So it's almost like when you want to start carnivore, is I would, yes, you can kind of phase into it if you're into like eating a lot of sugars and whatever. You don't have to go like all in cold turkey, but the decision has to be 100%. Even if it's just for 2 weeks or for 30 days that you're going to do it, I think a very solid and committed decision is going to be 80% important, for you to do it. And I think if you do make that strong commitment or decision, I think it's a little bit easier to share with people, but maybe put a light spin on it. Hey, I still might add a few vegetables later, maybe some fruits. This is just the initial part. It's an elimination diet. I'm trying it for a short period of time. Don't think I'm weird, and maybe put a bit of a smile on your face. And I kind of find it rolls over pretty good. I'm not sure what your experience has been like.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice. Just put a positive spin on it, and by the time you are 60 days in, your willpower will probably be built up enough so that it
Yeah,
doesn't matter what anyone says to you. You'll just be like, yeah, whatever, I'm okay,
yeah,
doing my thing.
yeah. Like we
Mm.
have something at work where we have a sales guy that comes in every 2 weeks, and he always has a few boxes of donuts, right? And they're always kind of in your face, and especially those little center parts, we call them Timbits. In Canada we have Tim Hortons, and the holes in the donuts, they have different, so they're like little ball donuts, and so you kind of keep, it's so small you can eat one, but 5 minutes later you can eat another one if you pass by, and 5 minutes later you can grab two more, so they're only small, but the bloody things are, they're jumping at you. So there was that. And for a good while I would avoid them, but then you get into the situation like before I went carnivore where you'd have the odd one, and then you'd have the odd other one, and before you know it, every time you walk by, if there's one there, you grab one. So there was that, and the guy still comes in, and the guy still brings those things, but I can look at him, I can be near him, I can take him to another table, but I think, being a few weeks on carnivore, I mean, I think your cravings really significantly drop, and then you get encouraged because you feel better. I think you got to be plugged into a support system, YouTube, and I think you got to kind of, and continue to kind of listen and be, and hear some stories and testimonies, and I think that kind of helps keep people. And if you're active, if you do a little bit of physical activity, I find that you don't really want to eat bad after doing that as well, so maybe subconsciously that kind of helps you as well to eat better. So
Yeah.
it's been pretty good for me. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's been pretty good
Yeah, I
for
was
me.
just going to add to that. I think the great thing about carnivore is when you're doing it, your blood sugar is so stable that when you've done that exercise, you're not gasping for some sugar after you've done that exercise.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I know that you know I'm not riddled with health issues. I'm not super obese maybe before this, and maybe on the outside I look okay, but I didn't feel optimal, that's for sure. I did not feel optimal. I felt like I was getting a lot of kinks, a little bit of brain fog, not really sleeping well, you know taking, not maybe dealing with stress and sleep in the right way. And that's me, which is relatively, a healthy guy, no diabetes, no, maybe approaching pre-diabetes. For me, it's phenomenal. I'm gonna stick to it. It's basically BBB&E, just plus a tiny little bit of dairy once in a while, a tiny bit of blueberries, and that kind of thing. And that's kind of on a trial basis. And maybe I'll get a bit more creative on using pork rinds and to do different type of carnivore things once in a while. But I love what I eat now, and
That's
um,
awesome.
I'm really looking forward to the blood work, so that I can
Mm.
kind of share with my family. Hey, look, I think I'm on the right track, and I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and they might they might catch on a little bit now that I'm 160 or 70 days into it. I do have a YouTube channel. It's not. I think it's got maybe a grand total of 4 videos on it. So I think a couple of dirt bike GoPro videos, and maybe a couple of other unrelated things. But I do want to maybe put a little bit of a channel or a spin or a section on that. And I'm not going to call myself the ultimate carnivore because I don't want to be banned, but to talk about nutrition and maybe whole foods and carnivore, and to have a few videos, and hopefully start sharing and stuff like that, but I'm not quite there yet. So I'm trying to get but that's where I'm hoping to go a little bit later on.
So can you share the name of the channel just so that we can
Yeah.
maybe if you get a few subscribers from this video that might motivate you to
Oh
start
yeah, it
talking about
would.
nutrition.
That would. 2012, capital BOUGIE. So at 2012, Bougie or Boogie, it kind of was a nickname of mine. And so, but the name, the kind of the main name of the channel is Mark's channel. And yeah, if I get a few subscribers, it'll definitely motivate me even after this call.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story today. I really appreciate it.
It was really a pleasure.